life originated on Earth about 3.8 billion years ago, and since then, there has been diversification of life forms. More than 1.5 million species of plants and animals have been recorded, and many more millions are yet to be discovered and recorded. But how important is species diversity to an ecosystem? Will the absence of a few species really make a difference to the ecosystem? Ecologists have been trying to answer this question for a long time. However, they believe that communities with more species tend to be more stable than those with fewer species. A stable community has the following features: a widespread species with minimal variation in productivity from year to year, tolerance and resilience to occasional disturbances, which could be natural or man-made, and resistance to invasions by exotic species. We don't know how these attributes are related to species richness in a community, but experiments by David Tillman of the University of Minnesota provide some tentative answers. Tillman marked off hundreds of small plots of grassland, each about a square meter. He then counted the number of prairie plant species in each plot. Some plots were species-rich, while others were not. Every year, the biomass of all the plants in each plot was estimated. Plots with more species showed minimal variation in total biomass from year to year. He then concluded that greater diversity leads to increased productivity. We are yet to completely understand how species richness benefits an ecosystem. However, we do know that rich biodiversity is essential for our ecosystems as well as our survival on this planet. Do you think that extinction of some species will affect our life? Would an aquatic ecosystem become less functional if one of its fish species is lost forever? We may not have the answers to these questions, but Paul Ehrlich, an ecologist from Stanford, tried to answer these questions with the help of an analogy, the rivet popper hypothesis. According to his hypothesis, species are like rivets in an aeroplane, and each species plays a vital role in maintaining the proper functioning of the ecosystem. The loss of one rivet may not weaken the aeroplane, but successive losses in rivets will adversely affect the functioning of the aeroplane. Likewise, the loss of one species in the ecosystem may not hamper its functioning, but the extinction of more species will have a great impact on the functioning of the ecosystem. Moreover, the loss of key species that drive major ecosystem functions will adversely affect the ecosystem. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, Red List 2004, about 784 species have become extinct in the last 500 years, which include 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, and 87 plants. In the last 2 decades alone, we have lost 27 species, and recently, we have witnessed the disappearance of the dodo in Mauritius, the quagga in Africa, Steller's sea cow in Russia, and thylacine in Australia. In addition, 3 subspecies of tiger, Bali, Javan, and Caspian have also recently gone extinct. An analysis of records relating to the extinction of species shows that these extinctions were not random across taxa. For example, some groups, such as amphibians, were more vulnerable to extinction. At present, there are more than 15,500 species worldwide that are on the verge of extinction. A study on fossil records suggests that our Earth faced a large-scale loss of species similar to the one we are witnessing at present, even before human beings came into existence. Ever since life originated on Earth, there have been 5 episodes of mass extinction of species. We are currently undergoing the 6th episode of extinction. However, its progress is different from previous ones. The difference is in the rate of extinction, which is 100 to 1,000 times faster than in pre-human times. If such high rates of extinction continue, ecologists have warned that nearly 50% of species on Earth might be extinct in the next 100 years. Did you know that the colonization of the tropical Pacific Islands by human beings has resulted in the extinction of more than 2,000 species of native birds? Such a loss of biodiversity has several adverse effects on the Earth. It may lead to a decrease in plant production due to loss of pollinators, and lower resistance in plants due to environmental disturbances such as droughts and floods. In addition, it may increase variability in certain ecosystem processes such as plant productivity, water use, and pest and disease cycles. But what is the cause of loss of biodiversity? Sudden climate change and various human activities have accelerated the rate of species extinction. These human activities, which include habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, alien species invasion, and co-extinction, are also known as the evil quartet. Habitat loss and fragmentation is the most important factor responsible for species extinction. The most striking example of habitat loss is our tropical rainforests, which once covered more than 14% of the Earth's land surface and now cover less than 6%. In fact, the process of destruction is still continuing in most tropical forests. The Amazon rainforest, which has the greatest biodiversity on Earth, has not been spared. This forest is also known as the lungs of the planet, as it produces more than 20% of the world's oxygen. Sadly, it is being cut and cleared to cultivate soya bean and converted into grasslands to raise beef cattle. Apart from habitat loss, fragmentation of a habitat is also responsible for loss of biodiversity. When large forests in the Western Ghats are broken down into smaller fragments due to various types of human activities, it adversely affects animals which require large territories to survive and reproduce, and thus there is a reduction in their population. For example, the population of the Asian elephants of the Western Ghats has declined due to forest fragmentation. The second major cause of loss of biodiversity is overexploitation of natural resources. For example, many marine fish populations have been overharvested. If such human activities continue, it may threaten their existence. Another cause of loss of biodiversity is invasion of alien species. When an alien or exotic species is introduced accidentally or deliberately into a habitat, it may turn invasive and cause the decline or extinction of indigenous species. For example, The introduction of Parthenium and Lantana on land and the water hyacinth in water has threatened native species. Another example is the African catfish, commonly known as Thai magur and moi fish. This catfish was illegally introduced in West Bengal from Bangladesh 2 years ago, which posed a threat to indigenous fish like rohu and katla. Another cause of loss of biodiversity is co-extinction, which occurs when the extinction of one species results in the extinction of associated species. For instance, the loss of the passenger pigeon resulted in the extinction of its parasitic louse, Columbicola extinctus and Campanulotus defectus. Another example is the case of a co-evolved plant pollinator mutualism, where the extinction of one results in the extinction of the other. For instance, co-evolved plant pollinator mutualism seen in the female bee and the orchid Ophrys, where the disappearance of the bee will eventually result in the loss of the orchid. Apart from all these factors, pollution in habitats has threatened the survival of many terrestrial and aquatic species. We are losing our rich biological wealth at an alarming rate. It is essential to control and prevent the loss of our biodiversity to save our planet.